Well, again, Sly Stallone and Chuck Norris never spent a day in the camps. And I think the most dangerous thing in the world would be somebody who took that type of an attitude, which is a movie attitude, into the real world. And unfortunately today, and I think this is prevalent in the U.S., we have tended to attach a sense of reality to what we see on the screen. Chuck Norris's movie Delta Force was relating to the Desert One operation. Desert One certainly did not turn out the way Chuck Norris's movie did, but I think many people would have liked to have rewritten history and seen it turn out successfully. And we tend to believe what we see on film. Now, the one thing that has always intrigued me about those type of movies is the infinite magazines that the hero always has in his weapon, the 2.5 KT hand grenades that he uses, the fantastic hip shots that he makes at 300 meters, and his ability to dodge rounds.
That facade of invincibility.
Invincibility. There is no such invincibility on a battlefield, and obviously not in a POW camp, because you can come into a POW camp bench pressing 450 pounds. You can be a mini Hercules, Mr. America. In 6 months, you're going to be fighting to stay alive. Now, in one of the camps that I was in, they had an individual that was brought in. It's an American captain. When he was captured, he had weighed about 225, 230 pounds. Been captain of the lacrosse team at a Northeastern university. His nickname was the Bear. Big, husky, strong, very dominant. I never knew him before he was captured, but from people that had been around him, very aggressive type of individual, physically overwhelming. The Vietnamese had him for 1 year. They had him in a camp by himself. They put him in a cage, and they left him in a cage. Now here you had Vietnamese who were 5'5", 5'4", down to 5'1". Physically, he was towering over them when he could get out. But because he was so physically imposing and so threatening, they kept him locked in a cage basically for a year. Let him out infrequently. They brought him into our camp after they'd had him for a year. He was at best 140, 150 pounds. He was simply bone with skin stretched over it. He was so bent and hunched that I could look eyeball to eyeball with him, and I'm 5'8". He started out 6'2". He was covered with a fungus infection. I had fungus infection, but his was so bad that he had boils with yellow cores that you could put your thumb into if you could pop them out. He was walking human wreckage. Now, the mind had already given up. He knew he wasn't going home. It took the body 26 days to die. The body struggled and fought, but the mind had already said, I'm too far gone to go home, I'm going to die. Force feeding, trying to get medication, which we couldn't get. For the fungus infection and all of that horrible mess, they gave us a couple of 1-ounce bottles of what they called Thuốc Ong Ya, which is like a medicinal Clorox. It oxidizes tissue. It would have taken several gallons of it, even if it would have been effective on the infections. I remember he had a boil on the back of his hand, and cleaning it out, and that was a chore given to us. I remember working that core, that yellow core out, and I could see tendons and cartilage when we cleaned it out. It was that deep. It had gone all the way down. Well, he got up one morning inside his mosquito net in the camp, and he asked me in a totally lucid manner what we were having for breakfast. And I told him, it's going to be rice, but Danny Pitzer's cooking it this morning. Danny does a good job, so this will be one of the better meals that we've had. And the next thing I heard was him yelling, "I can't eat rice. I can't eat rice." I went in. He was going into convulsions. Heartbeat accelerated. Danny was over there in a flash. Danny was a Special Forces medic, checked him out. Danny knew it was serious. He was going terminal. He stopped breathing on us. We got him breathing again. They got a VC medic over. VC medic gave him a heart stimulant. But within another 10 to 15 minutes, he was dead. It was that quick. And it was probably a burnout of a vital organ. There was no way we could ultimately tell. But the deterioration, the vitamin deficiency, the malnutrition, all of the organic problems that came. Now, they didn't beat him every day. They didn't torture him every day. But they took him and put him in a cage, like an animal. And there was no way he could resist because he was accustomed to physically asserting himself. They restricted him. They found the weakness. And they killed him, just as sure as if they had shot him. So that was what we looked at. Now, that's real world. Granted, he could have done a leading role in a Rambo movie. He was probably an extremely competent individual, but they found a weakness. Now, again, that's where physical strength is not going to do a bit of good. You're fighting with what you've got inside, and the faith, the beliefs, and the loyalties are the keys to the whole thing.